today's LEAD360 Her Leadercast. My name is Dorinda Walker, and I am head of programming for LEAD360 and the host of this Leadercast series designed specifically for Black women in leadership. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, LEAD360 is a professional development organization dedicated to the advancement of Black middle managers and senior leaders. In the words of our founder and CEO, Dr. Eric Walton, we believe that Black leaders matter. If you want to learn more about LEAD360 and our offerings, be sure to check out our digital magazine at lead360magazine.com, where we serve a new generation of Black corporate leaders and business owners. LEAD360 is the fastest growing entity dedicated to the success of Black executives. We urge you to join our tribe to experience insightful and inspiring educational content and an awesome hub of highly talented, educated senior leaders who understand your challenges and who have proven that they know how to win anyway. Today, I have the honor of hosting two phenomenal women who have blazed trails in beauty, fashion, and media. They opened doors to ensure that Black women were celebrated and provided equitable opportunities in industries that traditionally did not value our power and influence. Let's welcome Mikki Taylor, author, speaker, editor at large at Essence Magazine, and Beverly Johnson, supermodel, author, and activist. Welcome, ladies.
Yes. Hi,
Brenda.
We are so glad to have you on the show. So I want to get right into the conversation, but I want to give some context for the conversation to the people who are watching. Although women from the African diaspora are scattered across the globe and belong to many different cultures, many of us share similar concerns about how we are perceived. Sometimes these concerns have emerged as the result of global whitewashing of our culture that span hundreds of years. And in the Western world, racism and implicit biases that are affecting Black women today are the result of societal and economic structures that have consistently and deliberately excluded the beliefs and needs of Black women. Both of you have embraced and are unapologetic in owning the strength, power, and essence of what it means to be beautiful, passionate, strong Black women. So this question is for both of you, but I'm going to start with Beverly. Tell us about your life's journey and how you found the courage and strength to prioritize the things that ground you in purpose and that fuel your soul.
Wow. Well, hello, and thank you, Dorinda, for asking me to be on this very important program. I watched some of the series, and it's fascinating, really fascinating.
It's a pleasure to have you.
And Mikki, thank you for always booking me in Essence Magazine. I love you. You're an icon in our industry, and what you've done for Black women in beauty is outstanding, and continue to do. Now, my life story, or what really fuels me, is I think as I watch the television today, it brings me back to a small girl in Buffalo, New York, watching television, a black and white television, in the living room with my dad. And I remember being on the floor, looking at Martin Luther King, looking at the march in 1965, looking at the dogs being put on the protesters. And this was my first time seeing this, because we're from Buffalo and this is happening down south. And it was so surreal in the sense that it moved me in a way as if I were there. And it made such an impression on me. I wanted to become a lawyer when I got big, when I grew up. So here I am, it's almost like full circle, back to looking at television and really feeling that sick, that awful feeling that I have when looking at on the television screen and what's happening to Black people, and really wanting to do something about it. So that's how I got to where I am, in a sense that I did make that right turn into the fashion world from college, because of the monies that could help my family and I, and help my sisters and my family go to college. My sisters and brothers go to college. But I began this journey of who am I? What is this thing about race? And where did I come from? And what is this all about? Because I really didn't know. Our parents didn't tell us their stories. My mother's from Louisiana. My father's from somewhere up north. And we have a way of keeping those stories from us. And our stories are very important. That's why this program that we have is very important. So it led me on this journey. And so when I went into New York in the 70s, and one of my first jobs was Essence Magazine. They started in the 70s, 1970. We both started at the same time. And I realized very early on that we have not overcome, and that racism was alive and well and in this industry. And I just began to navigate myself on my goals. And one of the goals was to be on the cover of Vogue magazine, because that is our gold medal, our Oscar, is the American Vogue magazine cover. And I didn't even know there wasn't a Black person on the cover, because I hadn't been in the fashion industry. I didn't know that. But once I got that cover, and I realized the responsibility that was placed on me, that for some odd reason, because I'm not the prettiest girl, particularly not in the 70s, the streets were flooded with models, Black models. Am I right, Mikki?
Oh, yes.
I mean, it was our time. There were more Black models then than there are now.
That's
we
right.
had Black modeling agencies then. Mm-hmm. So for me to be presented in this position of being the first Black woman on the cover of American Vogue, I realized the impact it had on Black women right around the world. I realized that because the journalists were telling me that. How does it feel to be the first Black woman on the cover of Vogue magazine? And so that led me on another journey of who I am, self-discovery journey. And also I made a promise to myself that I'm going to, in any way I can, represent that moment, that cover, in the best way I can for Black women. And so that's what I've been doing. And what has happened recently now brings me back to that place where I'm able to speak up about what's happening in the world. Then I knew I had to wait to become this big mega model to have the leverage to really say what was on my mind. And we had a chance to do that in our industry. And we had backup from a magazine like Essence and Ebony, that gave us that kind of support. When we knew if they were going to kick us out, we had Essence. We had Essence and Ebony and Ebony Fashion Fair to go to. And which gave us the courage to say, you know what, we're not making the same money as the white model, my white colleague. I asked her, she told me she's making more money than I. And I started to confront those issues along with a number of other models. But I was born with the fire in my belly.
Well, we appreciate it. You have done us proud. So thank you for being a trailblazer and for opening doors. Mikki, how about you? What fuels your passion? Tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are now.
Dorinda, first I want to just thank you for having me at the table. It is an honor to be on this important show and to have a voice, and certainly to sit in the presence of one who I've admired for years, and that is the Beverly Johnson. And I disagree with her. She was one of the prettiest Black models in the 70s, so I totally disagree with that point of view. But, I came of age in Brick City, in Newark, New Jersey, and in the power of the 60s, which was a very revolutionary time like it is now. And in that time, Black women were the invisible women. I saw that in the work that my mother did. My mother, after she came home off the road from working with Sarah Vaughan as her hairstylist, makeup artist, and wardrobe stylist, opened her own beauty salon right in the heart of Newark. And I saw that those women who came to the salon, women from all corridors, all walks of life, and no, they weren't getting the same salaries as their white counterparts, but it didn't matter because they were involved in self-care. They knew their value. And I knew that they were getting more in the salon than a great hairstyle. They were getting affirmation. They were getting fellowship. They were getting to see one another and Black womanhood in the mirror, all shades, all shapes, all sizes, as beautiful. And so I think, you know, for me, I couldn't have done anything else but become an advocate for us. Yes, it held many different titles, but I'll say this, by the time I walked in the doors of Essence in 1980, I knew what the mission was. I knew that magazine outpouring about ourselves, because my mother had brought it home during high school. And out of all the magazines, she would bring magazines home from all over the world. We weren't in any of them. And then when she brought Essence home, again, it was like holding up a mirror. So yeah, the mission was clear. And it was very interesting to have a job description that said that my duty was to affirm and inform the culture's definition of beauty. Had I not grown up in beauty school, that was my home, with an edict that said, if the best is possible, then good is not enough, I might have been daunted by that. But we had the world as our oysters. We had the Beverly Johnsons and the Billy Blairs and the Imans, and as well as the girls that I stopped in the subway and stopped on the street to be on our pages. So, you know, just understanding that Black women deserved more. I watched us make a way out of no way. I watched us create makeup when we couldn't go to the department store or the counter to get makeup. Or the two lines, I think, at the time that came to fore for us was Fashion Fair and Flory Roberts. You know, at one point there was a Barbara Walden. These are, you know, names with the exception of Fashion Fair that, you know, women don't remember. But one of the other things, and you have to trust that it wasn't on my job description, I took it upon myself to educate beauty companies that how we saw our beauty was very different than other cultures, and that there was a language that we spoke, there was a respect that we deserved, and that there were products that they needed to make with our authenticity in mind. So yeah, I became an advocate for us in rooms where for years I was the lone Black editor. And again, speaking a language that they didn't understand, helping them to understand why they needed to create shades for us, and, you know, answering insulting questions, if you will. Well, how many shades do Black women come in? Do we really need to make 33 shades? And having them come to the table with 6 that worked for none of us. And so to me, if I fast forward to the present, I get a great laugh and a joy out of Rihanna, who came to market with 40 shades, and they can't keep them in stock. So, you know, this is what I call a transformational time for transformational people. The 60s represented that, the 70s represented that when Essence was born. And every decade, you know, we have the power to change things from the way they are to the way we want them to be.
That's awesome. Awesome history, story. Love it, love it, love it. Speaking of transformation, you know, we're in the midst of continuing to battle this racial pandemic that we're in. And the tragic murders of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and countless others have sparked a massive resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and forced our country to really embrace the reality of what it means to be Black in America. And last week, we learned that no one would be held accountable for the murder of Breonna Taylor. And for the Black community, it was a hard blow, right? But it wasn't a surprise because justice eluding us has become all too familiar for the Black community. But we'll continue to fight and push forward regardless of the emotional toll that we have to bear. And today we learned that yet another Black woman is going to bear the brunt of trying to fix white society's issues and the racial injustice. A Black woman named Yvette Gentry has been placed in a position as interim chief of the Louisville Police. And so we need to make sure that we support her. But Black women are always expected to wear that cape. And it's worth noting that Black women have been behind every significant movement in this country, starting with the abolitionist movement, the fight to desegregate schools in the 50s and 60s, the passing of the Voting Rights Acts of 1965, and multiple movements in between leading up to Me Too and Black Lives Matter. And they did that to ensure that, the treatment of marginalized communities of this, to ensure that we had fair treatment and equality. And so I love this quote by Kendall Castleberry Singleton, who's the Vice President of Partnerships, Strategy, and Engagement at Twitter, where she says, some people have shown up for inclusion and diversity at the moment, and some people have spent their lives making inclusion and diversity a movement. Both of you have been consistent leaders in the movement for the fight for diversity, equity, inclusion. Beverly, tell us the impetus behind the Beverly Johnson rule and why you're advocating for more Blacks to be elevated to the E and C-suite ranks. Beverly, are you on mute?
Okay. It was an interesting time. This is an interesting time. And, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and, the COVID had placed people in their homes and had placed people watching George Floyd's murder over and over and over again. And I found that there was a disruption, a huge disruption that wouldn't have happened without the confluence of these energies. And what happened was that all of a sudden, these industries were coming out saying, I've been wrong, I've been racist, and I haven't done this for Black people, and I haven't done anything. And we're like, yeah, we know. And, they give money to, the NAACP, or they come out and do these mea culpas. And Vogue Magazine did that. And before that, I was just watching like everyone else. But something struck a chord when that memo was released from Vogue Magazine about how the Black people weren't elevated in the company, and how they totally ignored them and weren't tolerant of them. And that did something. And I turned to Brian. Brian's my partner in business and love. And I said to him, oh, I want to make a statement. And a lot of you know, I made a statement when the Cosby thing was going on, and he was like, oh boy, here we go again. I said, no, I want to make a statement. Then I realized I didn't want to just make a statement. I want to do an op-ed for the Washington Post, because I saw this beautiful Black young woman who's the editor of the Washington Post, opinion piece of the Washington Post. And so I said, I want to do, and in that Washington Post, I just put it all out there. The fashion industry and the beauty industry, and how they've taken all our culture and have benefited from it, capitalized off of it, and then pushed us to the side. And then they have this whole thing about, let's put all the Black models on the stage, and it's great on the runway, and they put the Vogue thing up there, and they have a Black face there, and that is supposed to make everything all right. But we're not participating in the economics of the fashion, beauty, and media business. And in order to, so I asked Brian, I said, I don't want to list a number of complaints, because I can do that all day long here. I said, what can I do? There's got to be some solution. There has to be something I can do to make a difference. And he thought about it. He said, do you know anything about the Rooney Rule in the NFL? I said, no, I don't think I would know that much about the NFL. And so he explained this Rooney Rule, that one of the owners, who's white, all the owners are white, and that's their board of directors. And this white owner, Pittsburgh Steelers, said, I don't see any diversity in here. I want to bring up that I think that we should interview, when there's an opening, a coaching opportunity, we should at least interview one Black coach. That's all. That's all he wanted. And from that, 20 years ago, we now have Black coaches in every position. We have Black people in the front office. We have Black quarterbacks and so on and so forth. From that one small move. And I was like, wow, really? He said, you should do something like that in the fashion industry. I said, yeah, I should. And Brian said, and you should name it the Beverly Johnson rule. I was like, wait, whoa. I'm a barrier breaker, and I'm the warrior, but I've taken enough arrows. But he says, either you claim it or somebody else will. So I claimed it.
And power. Yes.
And I put that in the op-ed because what I understand from business, from being with this astute businessman, and from my own career, I'm an entrepreneur. Models, we're contract workers. I've been taking care of myself my whole life. What I understand is that decisions are made in the board of directors, not the executives, and they may have good, they're made in the board of policies, and strategies are made in the board of directors. And then they pass them down to the C-suite and the executives to implement those strategies and policies. And there in the fashion industry and in the beauty industry and all these huge conglomerate industries are no Black people on the board of directors. Not only no Black people, all white men. And that's what I decided to do, is to ask them to adopt the Beverly Johnson rule and interview when there's an opening in the board of directors or the executives, all the way down to the photographers. As we know, the Black photographers are needed in the fashion industry, all the way down to the Black photographers, that you will do at least interview two Black professionals, meaningfully interview two Black professionals. It's not affirmative action, just interview them. And anytime there's an opening, all the way down. And that is what I'm asking the fashion industry to do, these big companies to do, to implement the Beverly Johnson rule. And let's see how it works out. And then if you do adopt the rule, that we want to have certain metrics so we can see how well you're doing, right? We want to hold them accountable for adopting the rule. And so that's what I felt like. I felt so powerful in the sense that I'm bringing you something that you really can't say no to. Nobody's twisting your arms, but you're all saying that you want to, break up the systemic racism in the fashion industry. You're all holding up your hands. You're taking the sword. You're all, giving money to NAACP. You're doing all this. Look over here. But I'm looking over here. I'm looking over here, up here, and that's where the change needs to be. So now we're going to see if they are walking the talk.
That's fantastic. So the mission of LEAD360 is to really ensure that we have more Black middle managers and senior leaders in that pipeline to the C-suite. And we know, we can no longer accept the excuse that there's no Black talent, because we know it's abundant. So that excuse will not fly. So thank you for your leadership there. So Mikki, I want to throw this next question to you, because you've dedicated your career to ensuring that Black women were represented and recognized for their beauty and contributions to the world at large. So why is that important to you? And when you reflect on your career achievements, what are you most proud of?
Dorinda, there is no use having power, and certainly the power of your voice, if you don't understand it, if you don't know how to wield it on behalf of others. I live by a quote that comes from writer Freya Stark that said, there can be no happiness in life if the things we do are different from the things we believe in. I believe in us. I root for us. I get up every day to go to work on our behalf. I know us. I understand us intimately. And I understand when it comes to our beauty, first of all, how we see ourselves, how we behold ourselves. It's a unique experience. And on my watch, I will not let it be devalued. And so the fight goes on, the mission goes on, and it's critical to me. It is what I was created to do, to help us celebrate our beauty, to certainly help us own our lives, and then to master our purpose with distinction. And that has everything to do with using your voice and certainly impacting the lives of others in the process. So, wherever you find me, whether it's certainly in the beauty arena, whether you see me on stage as an empowerment speaker, certainly in the film company that I began last year to tell the unexpected stories of women of color. It is about us, because this is the time. Again, this is, for me, a time of reckoning. It is mirroring the 60s like I can't believe. Like I could just open a page from the 60s and this is it. In telling my own story, my coming of age opus, which is something that I'm doing with Audible, it's a parallel. So yeah, I couldn't be anywhere else doing anything else other than a time such as this.
And we are so glad that you are fighting for Black women, because we love you, Mikki, and you too, Beverly.
Yes.
It's just, I'm really, really enjoying this conversation. When I think about the word power and what it really means for me, it doesn't lie within your title, right? It's really your ability to inspire and lead with confidence, and to inspire others to take action and make a difference. And so that's why I give you two that powerful, title, because you two really inspire action. You inspire people to want to make a difference. You inspire us to know who we are and our beauty, and to celebrate that. So, we're really thankful for you for that. So I'm going to go to the next question, which is for Beverly. So we talked about you blazing trails and making history as the first Black woman to grace the cover of American Vogue Magazine. You opened doors of acceptance and inclusion in an industry where Black beauty is not often acknowledged or celebrated. You leveraged your knowledge and experience to evolve into a successful businesswoman. What advice would you give to individuals who are seeking to establish profitable businesses in the beauty and fashion industry?
The advice I would give to an entrepreneur or a budding entrepreneur would be to elicit the help of people that you see that are doing what you want to do. And it's very interesting because people love to help people. I mean, you'll stop someone on the street and say, "Do you know the directions?" And they'll stop there. If you pick the right person, and they'll spend 10 minutes telling you where to go, and it's just down the block. If you did 2 steps, you went too far. People love helping people, and what you have to realize is that you don't know what you don't know, and you have to elicit these people. I have 5 mentors. They happen to be very wealthy women, Black and white. And I don't call them up to talk about the weather or anything, but if I get stuck with something, should I do this? Should I do that? I'll give them a call, because the perspective that they have is up here looking down on the whole universe or platform. So I would say to an entrepreneur, don't try to do it yourself. Get advice. You can actually, I've cold called people. Okay. I mean, I have done that. And I'm surprised when people get on the phone. I'm like, "Oh, you know who am I?" "Yes, I know exactly who I or whatever. But even if you, but because what you have to do, you have to have a plan and a strategy, and you have to know that it's relevant. Because people have, these great ideas, and because I mentor a lot of young people, and they have these great ideas, and I don't want to throw cold water on a hot idea, but I don't want to elevate someone's expectations when I know that what they're trying to do is not there, how I feel. And then I actually turn them on to other people, and then just tweak it just a little bit. So one of the things that I think that I read this book, Sam Cohen's book on a self-made billionaire. And they said, what makes a self-made billionaire? What I found in that book was those people were a part of the corporate structure at one time, and they almost outgrew the corporate structure because of their ideas and their protect, and they had to go out. But it's those two combinations of the imagination and the corporate world that made a billionaire. So I do encourage like some young designers to go into that corporate world, to have an apprenticeship with that designer, to learn all you can from him. And then you can come back to try to, go on your own. But, be a realist. And because you don't want to do something and then feel defeated and, say, oh, it didn't work for me. Make it so that you have all the tools so that you'll be a success. And so that's what I would say.
And I'm going to chime into that because I had 20 years in the financial services industry before I retired. And, I had overstayed my welcome in the last year and had fell into a depression because I'm like, I don't want to lose my 6-figure salary. I don't want to lose the title and the prestige that comes with it. And so I started praying on it. And God said, well, who are you and who do you work for? And that was all the impetus I needed to say, bye corporate America, because, I got the message. And so now I can use the experience from corporate America to build my own business.
Yes.
So all of you out there, that advice that Beverly gave was spot on. So Mikki.
Dorinda, I wanted to just piggyback too on what Beverly said. It's really important to surround yourself with the right people. And I love how she talked about her 5. And, in my latest book, Editor-in-Chic, I talk about having what I call a celebration circle. And those are the people in your circle who can push, polish, and check you. Yay, she's got it. She's got it. But yeah, you don't want to be the sole fount of your information. And you don't really want to be a copycat. I always feel that, I always say that if God wanted 2 of you, he'd have doubled up. So you got to remember, you got to live in full vision of what you bring to the table. But you do have to surround yourself with people who know what you don't know. Maybe, and that could be everything from someone to help midwife you through that, birthing that success, someone to tour you when you get there so you'll know how to sustain it. There are no dumb questions. You have to ask a lot of questions. But it really is about surrounding yourself with the right people. And even for no other reason than I say your greatness was not designed to operate in isolation. So, you've got a vision, then who are the nurturers in your circle to make sure you see it through? And then what I say to those who work for a company, like Dorinda, like you did, you have to see yourself as a brand within a brand. Yes. And that's how I always saw myself at Essence. For 30 years, I was beauty and cover director, but I saw myself as a brand within a brand, and I took on the responsibility of making sure that both brands grew. And that's critical because you have to nurture your own gift. What is the end? Every day you should be walking towards your destiny. How are you doing so? And so when I became editor-at-large, then it allowed me to take on all these other platforms. But you really do have to understand that. And again, surrounding yourself with the right people it's critical.
That is so brilliant because you are a brand. Everyone is a brand. Even if you don't even have anything, you're a brand. And the thing about being a brand, and I don't know how I knew that as a little girl and just kept doing all of the editorial. So for some odd reason, I knew doing all those covers and all that editorial work, which doesn't pay like campaigns do. Let's just put it that way. I knew that was going to be important one day. Mm-hmm. And so if you build your brand, which is you can sell people anything. People buy into you. They don't buy into, these glasses or a new pair of pants or whatever, because it's great. You're a designer, but it's 2 legs, unless somebody has 3 legs. It's 2 legs. I mean, you know what I'm saying? People buy into the person, and that's who you have to work on and build. And that's who you want to present to whatever you do. You're always working on yourself and know that you are the brand.
Love that. You are the brand. So
Yes.
we do have a question that came in. How do you prioritize your well-being to avoid activism, burnout, and fatigue?
Well, you have to take time for self, and you have to guard your vision space, which is your mind. You can't give out of your lack. So if you run, if you're, there comes a point where you're going to run out of fuel, you're going to run out of purpose, you're going to run out of that which you can draw your strength from. So you have to take time for self. You have to, I call upon myself. I know that it is not optional. It is not a luxury. It is something I must do. I must meditate. I must check myself to see where I am. Am I on God's plan, or did I go off road? It's really important. So you have to take time for self. Any visionary, any dreamer, anyone who is on their way somewhere, let me just be most basic with it. You have to take time for self so you don't burn out, because you cannot give what you don't have.
And I think you have to really know yourself, because right now are really trying times. I just got to the point where certain parts of the news I couldn't watch. I can't see that one more time. And I would get up, and Brian would like, oh, you watch 2020 and forensic files, and no, I can't watch this. It's disturbing my spirit. I can't watch that anymore. And the other thing, so you have to guard yourself. You have to know who you are. You have to know what makes you strong. Extrovert, they like a lot of people, whatever, that gives them energy. I'm an introvert. That introvert, and being around a lot of people, I have to go back into me in order to rejuvenate myself from all of the. So you have to really know who you are, and that way you won't get burned out. And what I've also found is that there is enough time for everything. People always say, well, there's not enough time in it. And I found that because I live in a universe of abundance, and I believe in miracle work. And I have a life coach, and that's the kind of work that we do. But I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm a hovering grandmother. They have to call me softer. And, I go to the schools, when there were school, I know their teachers, I go to the plays, and I have about maybe 15 projects that I'm doing and working on. And so I have my love and whatever, and we have friends and whatever. I feel that if you're comfortable with who you are and where you are, you have time for everything.
Yeah, that's true. I like how you put that, Beverly, if you're comfortable with who you are. And because self-perception colors everything. It colors your entire life. And so how you see yourself, in fact, research has proven that we act in harmony with what we perceive ourselves to be. So you want to make sure that self view is really clear, it's affirmed, it's empowered. You even want to watch who you spend your dwell time with and where you spend your dwell time. Because some folks, some situations, some circumstances, they make withdrawals. And you can't be whole if you've got things and people who are making withdrawals. You want to surround yourself with those and in places that make deposits. That's what it's about.
I love that. This past weekend, I had the opportunity to speak at Sylvia Hyde's conference, and her theme was I am. And we talked about what you put behind those 2 words are the most powerful things in your aura, because it's going to define your being and the choices that you make in regards to your self-perception. So love that you ladies talked about that today.
I love that's very powerful. I am. Oh, I love that.
Right.
So Mikki, you're known and valued as the country's leading authority on inner and outer beauty for women of color. You got over 30 years experience in media. A lot of us know your work through Essence, but you're also the president of Satin Productions. So tell us about that work and any additional advice you would want to give to someone who wants to go on that path of what you're doing with Satin.
So, I started Satin Productions because I wanted to continue the work of educating beauty companies about us, how we see ourselves, and really help them build equity among Black women in an authentic way. Again, in the language that they spoke to us, the products they created, to help them understand how we shop our beauty. In fact, that we don't buy products, we buy experiences that we want to know. So that's why Satin Doll Productions was born. It also was born because of my disturbance at what I was seeing in terms of marketing initiatives. Again, the language that was spoken to us, the way companies would approach us, and particularly on the aging end, in ways that were just irrelevant to how we age. And so, yeah, whenever, that's the genesis of this company, because it comes out of a need. You really have to know the audience that you wish to reach, and become that bridge that, let's say, takes companies and brings them together with the audience that they desire to serve. I have even gone into do executive coaching, helping diversity and inclusion managers understand, look, you've been color all your life. Don't pick up someone else's manual. You own the playbook. Mm-hmm. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's why my production company was born. It was born out of a need in the industry. And anything that I do, it's because purpose has to be at work. It's the reason why I write books. I only write books when I have something to say and I recognize a need in the audience. Again, the company was born out of a need in the audience. Any effort is born out of a need for the audience.
Love that. Yeah. Love that purpose work.
I want to introduce you to someone on that note, because there are a lot of people, white people, business women and men that are calling me and saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, I didn't know it was that bad. And, what can I do?" "Oh, I know what you could do." "Who's on your board of directors?" "Huh?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have done what you've done with the blackface sweater, Gucci, and the noose and Prada. They wouldn't have made those kind of mistakes if there was someone in the room that looked like me.
That's exactly right.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And so I have somebody I want to introduce you to, because they are. This is what's so wonderful, Dorinda and Mikki, about this moment. I see it that the door it's always been closed, but it's cracked. It's cracked. And actually there's somebody standing on the other side, and we're shouting and they're actually listening. It's never happened before, because we've been shouting and whatever, and nobody's at this particular moment, they are listening. And I don't feel that it's a moment anymore. There's been a shift.
Yes. Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
been a shift.
There's been a shift.
And now is the time, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to spend your time and doing some, like sitting on a board I sit on a barbershop national board for abused children. If you want to do something, because sometimes I get my power from giving back. I get a lot of power from giving back. Whatever that purpose that you have burning, this is the time.
That's right. This is the time to spend it.
Yes, it is. So we have another question, ladies. How does beauty work against executive leaders who are Black? And I'm going to add to that, because from my experience, there's a lot of colorism in the Black experience in corporate America. So want you to weigh in on that. Mikki, let's start with you.
Well, the challenge, particularly what I've seen in some parts of corporate America, is that there is this dysfunctional thinking that we are one another's competitors, let's say, as Black women. That's dysfunctional thinking. What I bring to the table is uniquely mine. What you bring to the table is uniquely yours. And we should see one another as collaborators for the greater mission of who we serve. You really do have to move that erroneous thinking out of the way. You even have to move the word "I" out of the way. That's one of the things that I loved about, being at the desk at Essence, is that we always use the term "we." It wasn't about "I." Well, if I get there first, we never looked at it that way. What I know, even from a spiritual perspective, is that whatever God has for you, it's like reserved seating. No one else can come up and claim it. So you really don't want to buy into that dysfunctional thinking. You own the ticket already. The seat is yours. The gift was given to you as a divine assignment. So you can't afford to see your sister or brother as competition. If for no other reason, that's an insult to the creator you serve.
I love that.
To not buy into the dysfunction of others. That is in part why diversity and inclusion is still by and large a theory at most companies as opposed to a practice, because they cuff our wrists and then we turn around and do the same thing sometimes. We can't afford to think like that. It's dysfunctional.
It's so interesting that you brought that up, because you know, I was doing some work with JP Morgan Chase, and you're still doing some things with JP Morgan Chase, and, you know, basically telling my story. But they had me speak to their Black executives, 5,000 Black executives. They weren't there, but there were like hundreds there in the room. And I was thinking to myself, you know, wow. They find that I have something to say to these Black executives, because, you know, I always admired anybody that's finished college, because that's one of the things I've always wanted to do, is finish school. But anyways, I told my story, and they didn't break the internet, they broke the intranet, you know, whatever that is that they have in the company. And by just telling my story, and I think people have to get to know people. Not just, you know, because, you know, I can imagine, you know, because someone's like in the modeling world, you know, everybody sees this and they're doing this and they're about that and they're going to Martha's Vineyard, this and that and the other. And you don't really get to know the person. You don't really get to know their story. And I think that if people stop and began to know people's stories, you find the greatest blessings I have found with someone that I didn't like. I was just with this woman, the only Black person in this whole corporation. She was giving me, she wouldn't get the hotel. I mean, I would have to pay for the hotel. She wouldn't, just me. And finally I said, girl, we got to go have some coffee together and let our hair down, you know, because I couldn't go to the people and complain about this only Black woman. We go, we talk, we let our hair done. I find out about her, and, you know, she's married to a white guy and they have beautiful children and this and that and the other. I come back again and she's still doing the same thing. My reservation is not made and whatever, but you know what she brought me? She introduced me to a lawyer that was the most instrumental person in my entire career.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful.
Yes.
That's powerful.
So you don't know where that blessing is going to come from. It's standing right behind that person that you don't like.
Yeah. And you know, the interesting thing too, Beverly, how you said about your story, you know, it's important for us to be the author of our own story. And a lot of times we allow ourselves to become someone else's imprint. Mm-hmm. That's very dangerous. In the work life, let alone in your life in general. Don't become someone else's imprint. You will lose yourself. You will end up only living in the shadow of who you were created to be. So be the author of your own story. Walk in your story. Own your story in all its truths, in all its imperfections, in all that you ideate. Be the author of your own story.
So true.
And I learned that lesson in corporate America, because when I had the courage to really bring my authentic self to work and share my story, it gave me a liberation and a freedom that I never knew I could have. There's power in owning your story for everyone who's listening.
You have an incredible story. I told you need to write a book. When you told me your story, we connected like that after you told me that story. It was just like instant. And I don't know that corporate world, but I understand that it's really like, you know, cutthroat world, and everybody's, you know, trying to get where they're going by running you over. I would always think that you should learn from those lessons and those actions of other people, and sometimes institute those actions to get where you want to go, and then sometimes say, I don't want to go that road.
Yeah.
Or I will go this far. Because I think that you can't lose yourself, but you got to play the game too.
Yeah. And I think you have to let it make you better, not bitter.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so no matter what industry you're in, there are going to be seasons, if you will, where you're going through something, either at the hands of a difficult person or a challenging environment or a challenging task, what have you. But the key is to grow through, not go through. Let it give you something in return. So you really do have to pay attention to the lessons. That's how you land smarter, wiser, more prepared for the next time. And then your challenges become opportunities, because you gain something from those challenging times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. So, and this question is for both of you, but I'm going to start with Beverly. What advice would you give to women who are struggling with accepting their God-given beauty and that power that does lie within? And I know we talked a little bit about it, but is there any additional advice you would give?
Well, I think that when you're having a problem that's outside of yourself, which is kind of physical beauty, it's because you have a disconnection with your higher power. That's the only reason why that's there. That connection is not there, or has to be stronger, or you have to dig deeper, because that connection is really all there is, right? And it can bring you whatever you want. So it doesn't live on the physical plane anymore. It lives on a whole different plane, which is abundance and joyful, and you deserve it, and is there for you. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Mikki, how about you?
I think I agree with Beverly totally. And you really have to live from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. Again, you have to watch the information that you draw into your soul. Who told you weren't beautiful? What do comparison is the thief of all joy. Why would you engage in that? I really do believe that it goes back to your creator. If he only made one like you, and the record is that he was satisfied, anything that doesn't hold itself up against that truth has to be dismissed. So you got to watch what you believe to be true about you. Right. The word says you are fearfully and wondrously made. And that's what you need to dwell in that. You need to understand the truth of who you are. You need to see your beauty and get to know it, because so many of us don't really know ourselves well enough to refute the kind of information that says we're not beautiful. Mm-hmm. Because if you could accept that, that means, maybe you're working with some limited information. And a lot of times people will feed you something to make you feel bad because they see more about you than you see in yourself.
No, that's right.
You need some time for self. You
and
need to
also,
know how fierce you are.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, I believe in therapy. I believe in the scientific genius of man to be able to work with someone that has not only invested in you, they're not a family member or a friend, that can help you figure out this pattern you have, or your thinking, or those self-loathing thoughts, or whatever it is, that if you find that you need help, go get help. I believe in that. Find a good therapist. Yeah. They really know how to help you. I believe, and it's grown so much, therapy, in the way of life coaches and therapists, that they do help people. Remarkable.
I believe every woman should have what I call a temple management team. And if you've got a hairstylist, if you've got a dentist or a doctor, you've already started that team. So whatever you need, someone should be on that team to supply it, because you don't have to know all the answers. Right. So like Beverly said, wherever you need support, get it. You're not doing your own dental work. You're not, you're not giving yourself a physical every year.
Right.
You're not giving yourself a mammogram. So wherever you need support, get it. And it's really not about what others think about you. Is how well you value yourself, how well you value your peace, how well you affirm yourself. It's got nothing to do with anyone but you.
I love that, love that, love that. Because a lot of times, like, our beliefs are formed by our experience in life, right? And our interconnections with other people. But a lot of times what we believe sometimes aren't facts. And so sometimes we have to check ourselves to say, is this really a fact? Is this really accurate? And can I change that belief about myself? Because it's not true. Right. So love the advice that you guys gave.
Right. Feelings aren't facts.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so may mean that you even have to fire your inner critic. While there's a whole lot of people you got to put on the exit row in your life, and she may be here, she may be one of them. You wouldn't look at it this way. You wouldn't tolerate someone in your life who was always telling you things that you couldn't use. Right. Why would you tolerate that from yourself?
Exactly.
So, yeah, you may have to fire your inner critic. That's the introspection that we all have to do at some point in life.
So, ladies, I'm down to the last question. We have 4 minutes. And I think this is a great ending. How would you summarize the beauty, power, and influence of Black women? Beverly, I'm going to take it to you.
How would I
summarize the beauty, power, and influence of Black women?
Those superheroes? I wore red today just for that. You just got to stand in your power. You got to stand in your power and your truth. And you don't even have to say anything. They know you when you come in the door because they know you when you come in the door. Just stand there, right in your power.
Awesome. Mikki, how about you?
It's unprecedented. In a word, it's unprecedented, and don't be afraid of it, because it's some fierce stuff. It might make you, your own power can sometimes make you fearful. Don't allow it. Reverence it. By all means, use it. Yeah.
I love it. Is there anything that we can do and the viewers can do to support you? Where can we follow you? Any new work you have going on before we end? Mikki?
Well, you can certainly continue the conversation with me. My social media handle across the board is I am Mikki Taylor. Certainly, if you would support the book, Editor-in-Chic, How to Style and Be Your Most Empowered Self. It is a pandemic primer for your life, for your beauty, for your purpose. Let's just link arms and aims together. There's so much more we can do together than we can in isolation.
Yeah, that's right.
Amen. How about you, Beverly?
And I have I am Beverly Johnson on my Instagram, which I'm very proud of. I went from 12,000 to 62,000 in a year and a half. It just goes to show you, when you pay attention to things and when you give that kind of content and that kind of focus, it grows. Everything you give that focus and content to, it grows.
Okay. Well, thank you, ladies. It's been such a pleasure. I know we blessed so many people with your wisdom, experience, knowledge. It was a pleasure to have you on LEAD360 Her, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again in LEAD360 Her magazine. So peace and blessings to you both, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dorinda.
Thank you, Dorinda.
So nice to see you.
I want to see you too, Beverly. You got it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.